Hi guys, thanks for joining me in my studio today. I hope you're having a great day. Just finished this pastel drawing. As you can see on my iPad, I did a quick sketch first in Art Rage, just to sort of get the colours and get a feel for what I wanted to do. And then I produced the actual pastel drawing. So let's see how I got on with it. The drawing I did in iPad is really a version of a thumbnail sketch. It's just got a lot more information in it than a thumbnail sketch. And I do find doing like a sort of a finished drawing on the iPad first really is helping my traditional drawing and painting and just using traditional media really. So I've put the original photo up at the top of the screen there for you to look at, so you can see what I'm actually working from. And I'm using big bold strokes with this. I'm using some Winsor & Newton pastels, soft pastels, and I've sort of broken them all in half, taken the labels off them so I can use the side of the pastel to get these strokes on. And what I'm going to do, some of the video is in speeded up, it's sort of running a lot faster, and then where I want to show you the detail, I've slowed the video down. So but at the minute what I'm doing, I'm just sort of getting colour, the first sort of tones onto the piece of paper really, and I've slowed it down a little bit because I want to show you how I'm putting the light by putting sort of negative strokes in between this little clump of trees and sketching in the sunlight there. So I've sort of painted in a negative way. I've already got the trees in rough as a sort of an outline. I felt that grey needed warming up a bit, so I went for a lemon yellow just to put a little bit of warmth into the drawing really. You can see I'm being very delicate with these strokes, and then I've speeded it up again now, and I also sort of, where I put a colour, I try to make little marks on the page to create a balance over the whole thing, where I've got sort of colours echoing themselves in other areas of the paper which aren't necessarily on the photograph. You can see I'm just using that as a guide for a tonal reference. What I'm doing here, I'm just brushing off some of the pastels, because I'm using a paper that doesn't like to take a lot of pigment. So if I feel like it's not letting me put any more pigment on, I just brush it softly with the brush, just dust it softly with the brush. That gets some of the pigment off, then allows me to apply some of the some more colours. And I have to say, with these pastels, the Winsor & Newton ones, some of them went on lovely. They were buttery smooth, and others were quite harsh. Although they're supposed to be soft pastels, didn't really respond like soft pastels. And I'm talking about the kind of mid blue green colour that's in the middle ground or the foreground, just below the distant bushes, and that colour was not easy to put on. I just do a tiny little blending there. That's the only blending I really do in the whole of the painting. No matter what medium I use, I love to see the brush strokes or the strokes of the pastels or whatever. I don't want to see a hyper realistic looking drawing. I want it to look painterly, and I want you to see that it is a drawing and not some attempt at copying a photograph or anything like that. I'm just using that as a reference to spark off my imagination with all the colours that I am going to whack in there. So again, I'm using sort of soft pinks, really nice soft pinks, to warm up that light in between the trees or behind the trees. And I've also got the soft pink in the horizon of the sky, putting that in there, and you can see I'm putting in little marks where I can imagine the light sort of just catching the edge of the tree and making that sparkle as well. So using really nice vibrant colours. I'm finding that if I some of these pastels haven't been used that much, and if I just scrub them out on the masking tape at the side, it just helps them give the pigment up more readily, really. So I'm echoing that orangey colour in the light coming through the trees onto the grass. Strengthen up the trees a little bit. I felt they were sort of disappearing. Adding more greens. So I've not got a massive palette of pastels. I don't do that many pastel drawings, to be honest. So, but I've really enjoyed doing this. I think I need to invest and get some more pastels and more colours. I felt I was definitely lacking in the blue-green area, but I did discover that they do kind of, I'm not saying they blend together or mix together, but if you apply, say, a green over a blue, you do get sort of a blue-green effect, that where your eyes sort of tricked that that's the colour you're using. So I'm just going in with detail and sort of keep standing back. Every time my arm disappears, I'm sort of standing back and having a look at it. I just brushed off some of the colour where the sun is, because it was getting muddy, and I had to keep wiping the pastel, because every time I put a mark on, it lifted up some of the blue and smudged it. So I dusted it off, and then I applied some more colour, and I had to be really careful. Every time I made a mark, I had to wipe the side of the pastel to keep it nice and bright. Just adding some more delicate little strokes. And it's all of those are put in the foreground to draw your eye. You can see there's a diagonal going across there, and that's to take your eye into the drawing up towards that clump of trees. And I'm trying to get the impression that the light is bouncing off the grasses there, with a few more highlights popped in. So although it is quite abstract and a real impressionist piece, I'm really thinking very carefully where I put the strokes. And if you've watched my digital channel, you will know, there's a link in the description below if you want to check that out. You'll know that I do a lot of impressionist work, but every mark I make is thought out, well thought out. Even though it doesn't look it, it looks as though they've been sort of whacked on haphazard and put on in sort of random ways. But no, I actually do think about what I'm doing. At this point, the paper's getting clogged up, and it's difficult for me to get any more marks on it, because it's only a sort of a cheap pastel pad. So it only takes maybe 2 or 3 layers of pastels, and then that's it. It won't take any more colour. I'm just softening off the edges of that tree, just to give it a sort of a diffused look. I'd much rather do it with a brush than my fingers. I think fingers leave grease marks on the paper. It's too heavy. I just like the softness of doing it with a brush. Just softening that distant edge. I felt it was a bit too sharp, and I wanted to get the impression of aerial perspective going off there. I'm using the pastels to sort of blend in the nice soft pink in the foreground up to the rich blue of the sky. putting that in with simple little marks. Just putting a bit of shadow underneath the tree. I felt it all felt a little bit round and flat, like a circle, not a nice sphere or sort of random shape that a tree would actually be. So the drawing's pretty much finished. I'm just sort of looking at it, standing back and putting the final marks. I add a little bit of purple into the foreground, making some more blue marks in there. And I'm just sort of standing back, keep looking at it and thinking, what do I need just to balance the whole thing over. So it's a very, you can see I'm taking my time. I'm not rushing it. I'm looking back again now. I decided that I needed a little bit of darks in there just to define the trees a little bit. So that's a kind of a Payne's grey type pastel, just a neutral looking grey. Very delicate little marks. Just finishing it off. I'm sure I'm happy with it at this point. Yeah, there we go. Just get the signature on. Maybe I should have signed it with a pencil. It's a little bit on the big side. So there we are. That is pretty much it. That's my pastel drawing. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, a big thumbs up as always is much appreciated. And if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, because I've got lots of videos like this and I would love to be sharing them with you. So hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye.